While the Odyssey online discussion keeps going, I think the problem did not begin with this movie. As I intend to show here, it already appeared very clearly in Oppenheimer. And the issue is not simply politics. Traditionally, stories are not just made to entertain us. Since Aristotle, the great function of drama has been to give order to chaos, to show how human choices reveal character, and how moral actions have consequences. A tragedy, in the classical sense, is not just a sad story, but the fall of a hero. A man makes a moral or intellectual error, violates the order of reality, and suffers the consequences. That is why stories matter. They teach us how to live, showing that intelligence, power, prestige, and talent must be ordered toward the good. If they are separated from virtue, they become destructive. And for most of his career, Nolan understood this very well. In Memento, the protagonist lies to himself, and the lie destroys his soul. In Insomnia, a detective wants justice, but learns that justice cannot be built on corruption. The ends do not justify the means. In The Prestige, two men sacrifice love, family, and truth for professional glory, until the trick consumes them. In Batman, Bruce Wayne tries to restore justice in a corrupt city, but also learns that a society built on a lie cannot stand forever. In Inception, Cobb must leave illusion and return to reality and to his children. In Interstellar, science is important, but it is ultimately ordered toward love, fatherhood, sacrifice, and the survival of the family. Even Dunkirk follows this classical logic: surviving individually is not enough. It must become solidarity, sacrifice, and service to the community, while in Tenet, the protagonist is fighting to not lie as standard operational procedure, and wants to save the world from the revolutionaries who think that it is okay to kick grandpa out of the stair. So Nolan often worked inside a very traditional moral structure. But in Oppenheimer, something changes. The film is still brilliant and technically impressive, but its center is not the corruption of Oppenheimer's soul. The film is fascinated by intelligence, science, political power, and the consequences of the atomic bomb. It presents Oppenheimer as a Prometheus figure, the man who brings fire to humanity and is punished for it. And that is exactly the problem. Because the film spends enormous energy showing the persecution of Oppenheimer, the political hearings, his lost prestige, his relationship with institutions, and whether he was treated unfairly by the system. But it does not truly place his moral corruption at the center. Oppenheimer betrays his wife, lives a disordered sexual life, fails as a husband and father. His family is broken. His home is spiritually destroyed, and even one of his kids, when adult, took her own life due to the consequences of her father's actions. But the film treats these things as secondary. The deeper tragedy should not be only that Oppenheimer lost influence, reputation, or political power, but that a man of immense intelligence did not order his own soul, and his intelligence wasn't ordered toward good. A classical story would ask, what is the point of scientifically understanding the material universe if you cannot govern your own passions? What is the point of building the most powerful weapon in history if you cannot protect your own family? What is the point of being a genius if your genius is not submitted to truth, virtue, and love? Morally inverted, the film is very worried about the atomic equipment, about Japan, politics, science, and institutions. And those things matter, but much less than the soul of the man who built the bomb. It is easier to feel guilty about people across the ocean than to face the destruction inside your own house. The atomic bomb should not appear only as a scientific or political catastrophe, but also as the external image of an internal disorder. A civilization capable of splitting the atom while destroying the family is already spiritually unstable. Because the family is the cell of civilization. When the family collapses, the community collapses. When the soul is disordered, science becomes dangerous. When intelligence is separated from virtue, knowledge becomes power without wisdom. Leaving aside personal inclinations in his life, Oppenheimer is the clearest example that Nolan's worldview becomes increasingly humanistic and material. And that is why the Odyssey becomes so important now. Because Homer's Odyssey is one of the foundational stories of the West. It is about a man who must master himself, recover virtue, and return home. So the question wasn't only whether Nolan can film ships, gods, monsters, and battles, but if after Oppenheimer, he still could recover the classical vision of the hero who submitted to the gods and recognized that he must surrender to bigger things than him. Because a true hero is not simply a scientific genius, but a man who conquers himself. And that is precisely what Oppenheimer failed to show.